Good morning, everybody. We are starting today with Shrimad Bhagavata Mahapurana, Book 11, Discourse 15. So for the third time, we are in the middle of the Uddhava Gita, the spiritual teachings of Sri Krishna to his friend Uddhava. This discourse is on names and characteristics of the various siddhis acquired through yoga. The glorious Lord began again. Siddhis, or mystic powers of various kinds, wait upon the yogi of steady mind who has subdued his senses and controlled his breath and concentrates his mind on me. Uddhava submitted. Kindly say, through what mode of concentration, which and what kind of siddhi can be acquired, and how many siddhis are there, since you are the bestower of siddhis on the yogis, O immortal Lord? The glorious Lord replied, 18 are the siddhis as well as the modes of concentration taught by those that have attained perfection in yoga. Of the former, 8 abide chiefly in me, and in a lesser degree in those that have attained similarity of form with me. 10 more being attainable through the mere development of sattva guna to sufficient extent. 1, anima, the siddhi of reducing one's body down to any lesser size you wish, down to the size of an atom. 2, mahima, magnifying one's body to a gigantic size. And 3, laghima, reducing the mass of the body. These 3 pertain to the body. 4, prapti, consists in establishing contact with the senses of the entire creation in the form of the deities presiding over those senses. So what this means is, for example, you can establish contact with Surya Deva, the deity presiding over the sense of sight, and thus you can tap into the sight of any being and see through its eyes. Or likewise with the ears through the Digdevatas, likewise with the nose through Vayu, the sense of taste through Varuna, etc. Prakamya means the capacity to enjoy pleasures heard of and capable of being seen, specifically heard of through the scriptures as enjoyable in the other world, and especially in the Patala lokas. While 6, Ishita, consists in the capacity to impel Maya and the other subordinate potencies to function according to one's will, essentially bending reality within Maya, or so perhaps more accurately put, bending unreality. 7, Vashita means absence of attachment to the pleasures of sense, while the 8th siddhi is Kama Vasayita, according to which one is able to enjoy in the highest measure whatever pleasure one seeks to enjoy. These 8 siddhis, O gentle one, are considered as natural to me. The other 10 siddhis are 1, absence of hunger and thirst, old age, etc. in this body. 2 and 3, the capacity to see and hear from an unusual distance, in other words, clairvoyance and clairaudience. 4, locomotion at a speed which can be increased according to one's will, even to the point of essentially teleportation, that you can instantly move your body to wherever your mind directs it without any physical limitations. 5, taking any form at will, shape-shifting. 6, leaving one's own body and entering any other untenanted body. So, for example, you could slip into the body of someone asleep. We even have records of people doing this with bodies that are freshly dead, animating and puppeting a fresh corpse, and so on. Shankaracharya himself famously did that, actually. 7, giving up the ghost at will. So the 7th of the minor siddhis is literally the power to die at will. 8, participation in the leelas of devas. 9, attainment of one's desired ends. So in other words, the setting of an extremely powerful sankalpa to cause the support of nature to line up behind the attainment of one goal. And 10, exercising authority unobstructed everywhere. This one is often described as being essentially like mind control, absolute authority that you can give a command to any being and it will be compelled to obey you. The minor siddhis are to know things relating to the past, present, and future, to remain unaffected by pairs of opposites like heat and cold, joy and sorrow, likes and dislikes, etc., to read others' mind, etc. The etc. probably implies a few other telepathic sorts of functions along with that. To neutralize the power of fire, so that it cannot burn you. To neutralize the power of the sun, so that, again, it cannot burn you. To neutralize the power of water, so as to be immune to drowning. To neutralize the power of poison, etc. And to suffer no defeat at the hands of anyone whatsoever. So in other words, similarly to neutralizing fire cannot burn you, sun, you'll never burn in the sun, water cannot drown you, poison will not harm you. To suffer no defeat means like you're immune to physical harm, that, you know, like massive crushing impacts or blades or whatever cannot damage your body. These are the siddhis following from yogic concentration, typically mentioned by me. Hear from me what siddhi can be acquired through which mode of concentration and how. He who focuses his mind, identified with the subtle elements, on me as ensouling the subtle elements, and worships that form alone, acquires my power of assuming a smaller size down even to an atomic size, and thereby attaining the capacity to enter even a slab of stone, because one could simply move between the atoms of the stone. Even so, concentrating his mind, identified with Mahatattva, the principle of cosmic intelligence, on me, the supreme ensouling the said Mahatattva, he acquires the capacity to assume any magnitude sought for by him, and focusing his mind on me as ensouling any one of the elements individually, he attains the magnitude and all-pervasive character of that particular element, and thus you are able to assume a body made entirely of air, or of fire, or of water, or of earth, or of ether. Similarly, concentrating his mind on me as ensouling the atoms of the 4 elements. So Krishna is saying this one does not work with ether, but with any of the other elements, a yogi attains extreme lightness of body, or the capacity to become as subtle as the subtlest division of time. Likewise, focusing his entire mind on me as ensouling the cosmic ego born of sattva guna, the yogi who has given his mind to me attains the siddhi of prapti in the shape of control over the senses of all, and ability to tap into and experience the senses of any being, not just of one's own body. He who concentrates his mind on me as ensouling the sutra, the active aspect of Mahatattva, attains the siddhi known as prakamya, the easy access to all sorts of enjoyments of one's seeking. The highest siddhi possessed by me as presiding over the sutra, which is born of the unmanifest. He who focuses his mind on me as the all-pervading witness, the ruler of Maya, consisting of the 3 gunas, attains the siddhi known as ishitva, control over all bodies and conscious selves. Ishitva literally means lordship. The yogi who, so in other words, the power to essentially mind control any being, or at least any being which is not itself an equal siddha. The yogi who concentrates his mind on me as Lord Narayana, spoken of as the 4th or transcendent principle, existing beyond the 3 states of Virat, the cosmic person presiding over the physical plane, Hiranyagarbha presiding over the astral plane, and the causal principle presiding over the causal plane, Karanodakasai Vishnu, and called by the name of Bhagavan, embodying in himself the 6 divine properties of universal dominion, righteousness, glory, prosperity, wisdom, and dispassion, each in its entirety, meaning each of those things to an infinite extent, acquires my virtues and attains the siddhi of Vashita, non-attachment to all material objects. Focusing his pure mind, cleansed through pranayama, etc., on me as the transcendent Brahman, one attains supreme bliss, which is only another name for the siddhi called kama vasayita, in which all desire ceases for good, because infinite bliss is experienced, and so it transcends any impetus for some desire, since the ultimate bliss which could result from the fulfillment of any desire is already possessed. Concentrating his mind on me as Lord Aniruddha, the Lord of the Shvetadvipa heavenly island, who is absolutely pure, untainted by the three gunas, and the embodiment of virtue, or it could also be translated the propeller of virtue. Man attains absolute purity in the form of no longer being subject to the three gunas, and is rid of the 6 waves or the 6 changes. So this is the siddhi of being immune to hunger, thirst, old age, death, grief, and infatuation. Immune to death in this sense does not mean that one will never die, but it means that one will die only at the time of one's choosing. One is immune to involuntary death. Mentally perceiving the unexpressed sound in me, as conceived in the form of the cosmic breath, taintless and all-pervading like the sky, the said jiva is able to hear from a distance the diverse sounds of living beings manifested therein. So clairaudience. Uniting the I with the sun and the sun too with the I, and contemplating on me in the aforesaid mutual union of the two, man is gifted with a penetrating vision and is consequently able to perceive the whole universe visually. So clairvoyance. By virtue of the concentration of mind practiced after uniting with me, the mind, and thereafter the body too, along with the breath, one attains the siddhi called manojava, as a result of which the body surely finds itself wherever the mind goes. Manojava literally means mind going, the ability to simply teleport the body to any location where that you can visualize in your mind. Some of the commentators also interpret manojava, and not just commentators, but practicing yogis, also speak of an aspect of manojava or mind going as being like what people call astral projection, of being able to send not the physical body, but the spirit to any such location. And in combination with the aforementioned siddhis, to be able to essentially flit about as an invisible spirit with full powers of sight and hearing anywhere, and being able to, and act on places through one's other siddhi powers. The yogi gets converted into the very form sought for by his mind that he would assume, making the mind his material for that form, the force of concentration of the mind on me, whose potency is inconceivable and who appears in numerous forms, being the ground of all siddhis. So this is referring to the shape-shifting siddhi that was mentioned. Seeking to enter another body, the yogi who has controlled his breath as well as his indriyas and mind should conceive himself as present in that body. As a result of such contemplation, his vital air, the chief constituent of his astral body, leaves his own body and, becoming one with the cosmic air, enters the other body through its nostrils, as a black bee passes from one flower to another. So this is how you can essentially possess and inhabit another body. Having blocked his rectum with his heel and pushed up the vital air to his heart, chest, throat, and crown of the head, and mentally forcing it further upwards through the subtle aperture known as the Brahmarandra, to Brahma or any other destination sought to be reached by him, the yogi should shed the body whenever he likes. So that is referring to the siddhi of voluntary death at a moment of one's choosing. Seeking to sport in the sport grounds of the gods in heaven, one should contemplate on sattva unmixed with rajas and tamas, and constituting my personality. Following such contemplation, apsaras, representing so many rays of sattva, wait on him with aerial cars, ready to take him bodily to heaven. Devoted to me and focusing his mind on me, true of resolve as I am, man duly attains that object which he seeks with his intellect, wherever and in whatever way he wants it. The command of a man who has acquired my disposition is not flouted anywhere any more than mine, the ruler of all and absolutely self-dependent as I am. Direct knowledge of the past, present, and future, coupled with that of birth and death, etc., as well as of the minds of others, comes to that yogi whose mind has been purified through devotion to me and who knows how to concentrate his mind on me, the knower of the past, present, and future. Seasoned by yoga in the form of concentration on my personality, which is incapable of being damaged even slightly by fire, etc. The body of a sage whose mind has found its repose and concentration on me cannot likewise be damaged by fire and other elements, which cannot harm him any more than water can prove harmful to aquatic creatures. The famous example of one who mastered and embodied this siddhi that we've read about is Prahlada, who did indeed prove to be completely immune to drowning, to poison, to crushing, and blades, to fire, etc., in the intensity of his concentration on Narayana. Contemplating on my glorious avatars, graced with the marks of Srivatsa and decked with my weapons and distinguished by an ensign, umbrella, and chowri, the aforesaid sage turns out to be invincible, completely immune to harm. The aforesaid siddhis in their entirety wait upon the sage who worships me through yogic concentration, as detailed in the foregoing verses. What is that siddhi which is very difficult to attain for the sage who, having conquered his senses, tamed his mind, and controlled his breath and body, practices concentration on me? The wise, however, speak of these siddhis as obstacles in the path of the man who is practicing the highest yoga, and that they cause delay in his getting united with me, his true goal, since one might be tempted to go and play with them, having attained them, which would constitute taking a break from continuing on the path of yoga. One attains here through concentration all those siddhis that follow from birth. So in other words, some people are born with certain siddhis. Those siddhis that follow from the use of drugs, austerity, and the utterance of spells. One cannot, however, obtain the supreme reward in the shape of residence in the divine realm of the Lord of Yoga by recourse to other means. I am the source, bestower, I am the custodian and controller of all siddhis, as well as of yoga, union with God in the shape of the final moksha, Sankhya, Dharma, of the teachers of Veda themselves. I am the self of all embodied souls, being their inner controller as well as enclosing them from without, though unenclosed myself, even as the elements both permeate and enclose the bodies of living beings. Thus ends the 15th discourse in Book 11 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita. Discourse 16, glorious manifestations of the Lord enumerated. Uddhava submitted. You are actually the supreme Brahman, having no beginning or end, and unobscured by Maya. You are responsible for the protection, subsistence, destruction, and birth of all existences. The knowers of the import of the Vedas worship you, O Lord, in your reality, as abiding in all created beings, high and low, as their cause, though you cannot be easily known by those that have not been able to purify their mind. Therefore, pray point out to me those particular entities by contemplating on you through which with devotion, men of supreme wisdom attain highest perfection in the form of true devotion or the saving wisdom. The inner controller of beings, you remain hidden from their view. O life giver of all created beings, deluded by you, living beings are unable to perceive you, even though you behold them. Mention to me all those powerful manifestations of yours, invested by you with your own divine glory that may be existing on earth, in the quarters, in heaven, or in the patalas, O Lord of infinite prowess. I bow to your lotus feet, which are the abode of all sanctuaries. The glorious Lord replied, in a like manner I was put this very question by Arjuna, while just going to fight with his enemies at Kurukshetra, O chief of those possessing insight into the meaning of questions. Feeling like the common man that I am the slayer and the other one is slain, and believing that slaying one's kinsfolk for the sake of kingdom is reproachful and unrighteous, he ceased from that act at the beginning. Disillusioned by my reasoning, that tiger among men then interrogated me at the van of fight, in the same way as you have done. I am the self, the befriender and the ruler of all these created beings, O Udhava. I am all the beings, as well as responsible for their birth, life, and death. I am the motion of the mobile, and Kala among those that bring others under their control. I am the state of equilibrium, in the shape of Prakriti, of the three gunas, and the property natural to a thing with attributes. I am the Sutra among the products constituted of the three gunas. I am Mahatattva among big things. Of subtle principles, I am the Jiva, and of those that are difficult to conquer, I am the mind. Of the Vedas, I am their guru, Brahma, who taught them for the first time to his mind-born sons. Of mantras, I am Pranava, the sacred syllable Om, consisting of three members, A, U, and M. Of the letter sounds, I am the sound represented by the letter A. Of meters, of chandahas, I am the Gayatri Chandaha, consisting of 3 feet. This is chapter 16 in book 11, Radhaji. Of all the devas, I am Indra, their chief. Of the 8 Vasus, I am Agni Deva, the god of fire. Of the 12 sons of Aditi, I am Vishnu, known by the name of Upendra, the youngest. This is the Vamana avatar. Of the 11 Rudras, I am Nila Lohita, Lord Shiva, the blue-throated. Of the 9 Brahmana sages, born of Brahma's mind, I am Bhrigu, the foremost of them. Of the royal sages, I am Swayambhuva Manu. Of the celestial sages, I am Narada. Of cows, I am Kamadhenu. Of the lords of Siddhas, I am Lord Kapila. Of birds, I am Garuda. Of Prajapatis, I am Daksha. Of the Pitris, I am Aryama. Of Daityas, know me to be Prahlada, the ruler of the Asuras. Of the stars and the annual plants, know me to be the moon god. Of Yakshas and Rakshasas, know me to be their chief Kubera, the lord of treasures, O Udhava. Of the lords of elephants, know me to be Airavata. Of aquatic creatures, know me to be their lord Varuna, the god presiding over the waters. Of those emitting heat and light, know me to be the sun, and know me to be the king among men. I am Uchchaisrava among horses. Of metals, I am gold. Of those that punish, I am Yama, and of serpents, I am Vasuki. Of the rulers of snakes, I am Lord Ananta, the serpent god, Ananta Sheshanaga. Of all animals having horns or large teeth, I am the lion. Of the 4 stages of life, I am Sannyasa, the 4th, last, and greatest. Of the 4 grades of society, I am the 1st, the Brahmana Varna, O sinless Udhava. Of all holy streams, I am the Ganga, while of all stationary waters, I am the ocean. Of weapons, I am the bow. Of the wielders of the bow, I am Lord Shiva, the destroyer of Tripura. I am Mount Meru among all abodes. Of all spots difficult of access, I am the Himalaya. Of trees, I am the Ashvata, the holy fig tree. This tree, Ashvata, is its ancient Sanskrit name, the word that Krishna actually used, but in modern times, it's much more often called the peepal tree. Of annual plants, I am barley. Of family priests, I am the sage Vasishta. Of those devoted to the spirit of the Vedas, I am the sage Brahaspati, the guru of the Devas. Of all leaders of armies, I am Skanda. Of those that lead men on the right path, I am the glorious Brahma, the birthless one. Of all sacrificial performances, I am Brahma Yajna, the daily recitation of the Vedas. Of all sacred vows, I am Ahimsa, nonviolence or harmlessness. Of purifying agencies, again, I am the purifying agency in the shape of the air, fire, the sun, water, and the word of a Brahmana. Of all the limbs of yoga, I am Samadhi. I am political wisdom and those that seek victory. Of scientific courses of correct understanding, I am the science by which the distinction between matter and spirit is known. I am the doubt of those debating on the theory of perception. Of the fair sex, I am Shatarupa, the first woman. And of men, I am Swayambhuva Manu, the first man. Of ascetics, I am the sage Narayana, and of celibates, I am Sanat Kumara. Of virtues, I am the vow of causing no fear to anyone. Of all factors conducive to fearlessness, I am thought withdrawn from without and directed within, toward one's own self. Of means of maintaining secrecy, I am kind speech and silence. Of pairs, I am Brahma, who himself assumed two forms, one a man and one a woman. Of those that keep awake, I am the ever-revolving wheel of time. Of the seasons, I am the 2 months of Chaitra and Vaishaka, constituting the spring season. Of the 12 months of a year, I am the month of Margashirsha, and of the 27 lunar nakshatras, I am Abhijit nakshatra. Of the 4 yugas, I am the Krita, which is another name for the Satya Yuga. And of the self-controlled, I am the sages Asita and Devala. Of the compilers and arrangers of the Vedas, I am the sage Krishna Dvaipayana. Of more of wisdom, I am the self-possessed Shukracharya, the guru of the Asura kings. Of divine personages, I am Lord Vasudeva, the first and foremost of the 4 vyuhas or manifestations of the Godhead. He is the deity presiding over the Chitta, the intellect. And of the votaries of the Lord, I am you, Uddhava. Of Kimpurushas, I am Hanuman. Of Vidyadharas, I am Sudarshana. Of precious stones, I am the ruby. Of lovely objects, I am a lotus bud. Of the many varieties of darbha grass, such as the kusha and the durva, I am the variety of grass known by the name of kusha. Of offerings thrown into the sacred fire, I am cow's ghee. Of those engaged in any business, I am the wealth. And those engaged in practicing trickery, I am gambling. I am the endurance in those practicing endurance. I am the courage of the courageous. I am the organic strength as well as the mental strength of the strong. And know that I am action of the devotees of the Lord. Of the 9 forms worshipped by the Sattvata followers of the Pancharatra Agama, the 9 forms that they worship are Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Narayana, Hayagriva, Varaha, Narasingha, and Vamana. I am the first and the highest, Vasudeva. I am Vishvavasu of the Gandharvas and Purvachitti of the Apsaras. I am the firmness of mountains and the odor of the earth. I am the sweet taste of water. Of the most glorious, I am fire. I am the brilliant light in the sun, the moon, and the stars. I am sound, the distinguishing property of the ether. I am Bali, Mahabali, the Asura king, among all those devoted to the Brahmanas. Of the valiant, I am Arjuna. I am the genesis, existence, and final dissolution of created beings. I am locomotion, speech, defecation, grasping, and enjoyment, and touching, seeing, tasting, hearing, and smelling, as well as the faculty in hearing in all the senses of perception. I am earth, the air, ether, water, fire, the ego, and Mahatattva, modifications, the soul, the unmanifest, Raja, Sattva, and Tamas, as well as the absolute Brahman. I am the numbering of these categories, their knowledge, and the realization of truth. Nothing exists anywhere apart from me, who am God as well as Jiva, the gunas as well as the categories made up of the gunas, who am the inner controller of all as well as all. The reckoning of atoms can be done by me in course of time, but not so of my glorious manifestations, as I evolve universes in their tens of millions. Wherever there is glory, affluence, renown, authority, modesty, liberality, elegance, good luck, valor, endurance, and knowledge of truth, that is my part manifestation. These are all my glorious manifestations made known to you in brief. They are mere caprices of the mind. They are like something merely expressed in words. Restrain speech, curb mind, control breath, tame senses, and conquer your intellect with your intellect, and you will no longer be liable to return to the path of transmigration. The sacred vows, austerities, and liberality of the yogi who does not duly subdue his speech and mind with his reason leak out as water from an unbaked jar. Therefore, keeping his eyes fixed on me as his goal, a man should control his mind, speech, and breath by means of his intellect full of devotion to me. Thereby, he will have reached the end of his journey. Thus ends the 16th discourse in Book 11 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita. Discourse 17, the duties pertaining to the 4 Varnas and the 4 Ashramas. Uddhava submitted. The righteous course expressive of and engendering devotion to you, and open to those observing the rules of conduct laid down for the Varnas and Ashramas, nay, to all human beings, was taught by you in the foregoing kalpa. Be pleased to tell me in detail, O lotus-eyed one, how devotion is engendered through one's own duty being followed. The supreme and blissful course of conduct, O Lord of mighty arms, which you taught, it is said, to Brahma in the former days in the form of the divine swan, who you mentioned before, O Lord of Lakshmi, has now disappeared after a very long time, O chastiser of foes, and will not ordinarily survive on this mortal plane, even though it was taught long ago. Other than you, O immortal Lord, there is none to teach, institute, or defend this righteous course on earth, not even in Brahma's court, where all the sciences are in attendance in a personal form. When the terrestrial soil is deserted, O Madhusudana, by you, who institute, maintain, and teach this righteous course, O Lord, who will expound this extinct dharma? Therefore, O knower of all righteous courses, tell me, O Lord, how and on whom among us the dharma engendering devotion to you has been enjoined. Sri Shuka continued. Thus interrogated by Uddhava, the foremost of his servants, the celebrated Lord Sri Hari felt much delighted and taught for the welfare of mortals the courses of conduct which are binding for all times. The glorious Lord began again. This question of yours is full of righteousness in that it leads to devotion, which is conducive to the highest good. Hear from me about the righteous course, followed by those observing the rules prescribed for the Varnas and Ashramas. In the very first Satya Yuga of the present Kalpa, the Varna of man was only one, and known by the name of Hansa. So there were no Brahmins, no Kshatriyas, no Vaishyas, no Shudras, there were only Hansas. People had their object of life accomplished by virtue of their birth. Hence they understood it to be the name, hence they understood it by the name of Krita Yuga, the age of blessedness. In the beginning, Pranava alone formed the text of the Veda. So there was no Veda except for the sound Om. While I alone, as existing in their thought, constituted their piety, appearing in the form of a bull, standing on all its 4 feet. Firm in ascesis, in the shape of one-pointedness of mind and senses, and free from sin, they contemplated on me, the immaculate Lord. At the beginning of the next Yuga, known by the name of Treta, after the expiry of Krita Yuga, O highly blessed Uddhava, was revealed from my heart through my respiration, the threefold Veda, the Rik, Sama, and the Yajus. And from the latter appeared I as the institution of Yajna, with its triple functions of the Hota, the Advaryu, and the Udgata. From Brahma, born of the cosmic person, appeared Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras, evolved from his mouth, his arms, his thighs, and his feet, and distinguished by their own respective conduct. The householder's order appeared from my hips and loins, the order of brahmacharis from my heart, forest life, or vanaprastha, from my chest, while the order of recluses was located in the crown of my head. The nature of men belonging to the Varnas and Ashramas developed according to the character of their place of origin, low in the case of those of a low origin, and lofty in the case of those sprung from a high origin. Control of mind and the senses, meditation, external purity, internal purity, contentment, forgiveness, straightforwardness, devotion to me, compassion, and truthfulness, these are the natural traits of a Brahmana. majesty, strength, fortitude, valor, forbearance, liberality, industry, firmness, devotion to the Brahmanas, and rulership. These are the traits of a kshatriya. Faith in the scriptures as well as in the words of one's guru, firm adherence to liberality, sincerity, absence of hypocrisy, service to the Brahmanas, and remaining dissatisfied with hoards of money. These are the inborn characteristics of a Vaishya. Remaining dissatisfied with hoards of money means always wanting more, always wanting to increase one's wealth. Sincere, guileless service to the Brahmana, the cow, and the gods, and contentment with whatever is obtained through such service. These are the inborn characteristics of a Shudra. Impurity, mendacity, thieving, want of faith, quarreling without cause, concupiscence, anger, and cupidity are the inborn characteristics of the Avarnika, those who are not in one of the four Varnas. Nonviolence, truthfulness, abstaining from theft, freedom from lust, anger, and greed, and doing what is pleasing and good to living beings. This constitutes the sacred duty of all the Varnas. Having undergone in due course, after the purificatory rites relating to birth, etc., have been gone through, a second birth in the shape of investiture with the sacred thread, and dwelling in the house of a guru with his senses controlled, the twice-born child should learn to recite the Vedas with the correct intonation and reflect on their meaning with the help of the guru when called upon to do so. A brahmachari should wear a girdle of munja grass and deer skin round his loins, a string of rudraksha beads about his neck, and the sacred thread baldric-wise across the left shoulder. Should carry a staff of the palasa tree and a water pot made of the shell of a wild coconut or of a gourd, and a bunch of kusha grass in the palm of his hand, and grow matted locks of hair for want of proper care. He should never scrub his teeth with a brush, nor apply soap to his clothes, and should never use a colored seat. He should remain silent while bathing, silent while taking his meals, silent while pouring oblations into the sacred fire, silent while doing japa. So while doing japa, mantra japa, he should think the mantra mentally, silently. He should not speak it out loud. And remain silent when answering the calls of nature. He should never pare his nails nor remove the hair, even in his armpits and on his private parts. Observing a vow of celibacy, he should never voluntarily allow his seed to escape. And if it escapes anyhow, he should take a plunge bath and going through a course of pranayama, so inhale through the right nostril, hold it as long as one can, and let it out through the left nostril, should then repeat the Gayatri mantra 108 times, going a single round of his Rudraksha mala. Pure of body and calm of mind, he should, each morning and each evening, worship the fire by pouring oblations into it, the sun god by offering arghya, or oblations of water, to him, the acharya who has invested him with the sacred thread and taught him the Gayatri mantra, the cow by offering handfuls of grass to her, the brahmanas, the guru, the elders, and the gods, and should wait upon both the twilights, the twilight of morning and the twilight of evening, by at those times silently muttering the Gayatri mantra. He should know the Acharya to be no other than myself, the Supreme Lord, and should never disregard him, nor should he pry into his faults, taking him to be immortal. For the Guru represents all the gods in his person. Bringing alms from other houses, morning and evening, he should offer it to the Guru, as also whatever else he might have received, and make use of only what is permitted by the Guru, keeping himself fully under control. Doing service to the Guru, the student should always wait upon him with joined palms like a menial servant, by following him wherever he goes, lying down, sitting, and standing, not far from him. Conducting himself as aforesaid, and maintaining his vow, he should live in the Guru's house, completely weaned from all luxuries. If the student seeks to ascend to Satyaloka, the home of the Vedas, who live there in a personal embodied form, he should completely dedicate his life to the Guru for further study of the Vedas for as long as the Guru lives, and thereafter by continuing to study the Guru's teachings, as well as to repay his debt to the Guru. observing the vow of Bala Brahmacharya, of lifelong celibacy. Full of splendor, born of a study of the Vedas, and devoid of all sin, the Brahmachari should have no sense of diversity and should worship me, the Supreme, in the fire, the Guru, his own self, and in all created beings. He who is not a householder should give up the sight and touch of womankind, conversation and joking, etc. with them, and should even avoid coming face to face with living beings sexually united. So in other words, he should try to avoid ever seeing any beings who ever have sex. He should just like be a complete recluse. Purity of body and mind, rinsing one's mouth with water after answering the calls of nature and after taking one's meals or refreshment, and sipping water before commencing a sacred rite or before commencing devotions or before taking one's meals, bathing after passing stool, bathing after shaving oneself, and bathing on ceremonial occasions, as well as on touching an untouchable person or object, and on the expiry of a period of impurity caused by birth or death in one's family, and so on. Saying the Sandhya prayers both morning and evening, as well as at midday, the Trikala Sandhya. Straightforwardness, resorting to holy places and to sacred waters, muttering sacred texts such as the Gayatri, and keeping aloof from untouchable persons and objects, prohibited food, and people who are not worth speaking to, looking upon all created beings as myself, and control of mind, speech, and body. This constitutes the dharma prescribed for all the ashramas, O Uddhava. Having mastered the Vedas, for all the ashramas of one who is following the path of lifelong brahmacharya. Having mastered the Vedas and with the seeds of his karma burnt by intense tapas, the brahmachari observing the vow of perpetual celibacy and resplendent like fire becomes my devotee and attains to me if he is devoid of impurity in the shape of interested motives. He who, having duly investigated the purport of the Vedas, forthwith seeks to enter the next ashrama, the life of a householder, who does not wish to follow this life of perpetual brahmacharya, should, after offering dakshina, the parting present to express one's gratitude to the Guru, perform the ceremony known as the Samavartana Sanskara, marking the completion of his studies and coming back home from the Guru's house, with the approval of the Guru. A brahmachari may enter the life of a householder if he has the sexual urge and wishes to enjoy it, or the life of an anchorite if he is keen on absolute self-purification, or if he is pure-minded already, and if he is a brahmana, he may even renounce the world and go about as a mendicant recluse. Or he should, in the regular course, like what most people should do, is pass from one stage to another throughout one's life. He who is devoted to me should in no case act otherwise than following one of these courses. There is another interpretation of that line. So in the ancient manuscripts of the Bhagavata Purana, it's often written without clear spaces between words. Another interpretation of that line splits up the words differently, and it would change the meaning, which would say, he who is not devoted to me should in no case act otherwise. Some commentators on the Bhagavata Purana take this to mean that one who is devoted to Vishnu does not have to follow these rules. That these interdictions are binding only on those who are not devotees. So, two significantly different interpretations of that particular verse. A brahmachari desiring to enter the life of a householder should take a wife belonging to his own varna, unblemished, and younger in age than himself. If, however, he takes a wife belonging to a varna different from his own, he should marry her after he has espoused a girl belonging to the same varna as his own, and that too in the proper order. Performance of sacrifices, study of the Vedas, and bestowal of gifts are the duties of all the twice-born, whereas to accept gifts, to teach the Vedas, and to officiate as a priest in sacrifices constitute the vocation of a Brahmana alone. Looking upon acceptance of gifts as detracting from his austerity, glory, and renown, a Brahmana should live by the other two alone, meaning by teaching the Vedas and officiating as a priest in yajnas. Or, perceiving the drawbacks of those vocations too, should live by the food grains left by the owner of a field after reaping the crop. This body of a Brahmana is surely not intended for trivial enjoyment, but for hardship and investigation of truth in this life and for everlasting happiness after death. With his mind fully satisfied by living on the food grains gleaned from the fields and from the grain market, and with his soul dedicated, which means not buying them from the grain market, but picking up dropped grains after the closing of the grain market. And with his soul dedicated to me, following his noble duty of a householder in the shape of entertaining a guest and so on, in a disinterested spirit and continuing to live at home, though never deeply attached to the home's fellow inhabitants or objects, a Brahmana duly attains abiding peace. Even as a vessel rescues a drowning man from the sea, I deliver without delay from straits those who duly redeem a Brahmana or anyone depending on me and suffering hardship. As a father would save his children from woes of every kind, or as a king elephant would lift up fellow elephants as well as himself, a sagacious king should deliver all classes of people from calamities of every description, and save himself too, by his own efforts. Shaking off all sin that he might have incurred in his past lives, in this life, such a benevolent Raja ascends to heaven after death in an aerial car brilliant like the sun, and revels in the company of Indra, the Lord of Paradise. A Brahmana in distress may try to get over their distress by taking to the calling of a merchant, dealing in such goods only as are worth selling, and not in prohibited articles such as dealing alcohol, etc. Curiously, the Dharma Shastras also prohibit Brahmanas from dealing in salt, even if they do turn to merchandise. Or as a third alternative, when overwhelmed with adversity, he may live even by the sword, taking to the military profession. But under no circumstance should he subsist by service to a man of lower grade. The Kshatriya too may live by the trade of a Vaishya, or by hunting in adversity, or he may live by teaching, etc., following the pursuit of a Brahmana, but in no case by menial service. Even so, a Vaishya may adopt the calling of a Shudra, and a Shudra may adopt the craft of an artisan, such as a carpenter, a weaver, a barber, a washerman, a shoemaker, a leather tanner, etc., or by making mats and so on. When rid of adversity, a man belonging to a higher varna should no longer seek his living by a reproachful pursuit. A householder belonging to the twice-born classes should, according to his means, daily worship the gods, the rishis, the pitris, and other living beings as my own manifestations through oblations into the sacred fire. So oblations to the sacred fire are how you worship the gods. Should worship the rishis by a recitation of the sacred texts, which is called Brahma Yajna, it's honoring the rishis who gave their lives to creating and passing down these sacred texts. Should daily worship the pitris through sraddha, the offering of food to the ancestors every day, and should worship other living beings through a bali or bhuta yajna, which is offering morsels of cooked food to birds, to animals, to all creatures, including even inanimate objects, before one's own daily meals. And also offering food and water to newcomers, to guests who might visit you. With the wealth got without effort or earned by pursuing one's own avocation, and therefore free from blemish, he should perform sacrifices with due ceremony alone, without putting his dependents to hardship. So in other words, if you have a wife who you support, if you have children who you support, etc., don't spend so much on yajnas that it causes hardship for your children, right? Don't spend all of your money on it. Do what you can afford. A sane householder should not get attached to the members of his family, nor should he be unmindful of his ultimate goal. He should realize even the invisible to be as perishable as the visible. Association with one's sons, wife, friends, and relations is no better than the coming together of travelers in a rest house. They are coming together now, but they will be parted by death. With every change of body, they vanish like a dream seen during sleep. Pondering thus and living unattached in his house like a stranger, and having no sense of I and mine with regard to the body and those connected with the body, he does not get bound by his household, but remains free from all bondage. Worshipping me alone through his household duties, a devotee may stay in his house, continue to be a householder for as long as he likes, or retire into the forest and enter the order of an anchorite, the order of vanaprastha, or renounce the world and go about as a mendicant recluse, if he has a male issue. So one should have a son first to carry on one's line. The fool, whose mind is attached to the house and who is afflicted with the hankering for progeny and wealth, who is domineered over by his wife, and whose intellect is bewildered by the notion of I and mine, gets bound. He remains engrossed in thoughts like, alas, my aged parents, my wife, whose children are yet very young, and my children will be left without a protector and will feel miserable and afflicted without me. How will they survive? With his mind wholly distracted thus through excessive attachment to his household and his judgment clouded, unsated with the pleasures of sense and thinking of the pleasures of sense all the time, this fellow, when dead, descends into blinding darkness, continuing in the whirl of their ignorance and drawn by attachments and by cravings. Thus ends the 17th discourse in Book 11 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita. Discourse 18, which is on the duties. So that was covering the duties of brahmacharyas and householders, now the duties of vanaprastha and sannyasa dharma. The glorious Lord began again. Committing his wife to the care of his sons, the householder who is keen to retire into the woods and enter the life of a vanaprastha should spend the third part of his life in the forest alone or with his wife, with his senses fully controlled. He should subsist on wild bulbs, roots, and fruits which are fit for being offered into the sacrificial fire, and meaning sattvic ones, and should wear as his apparel the bark of trees or matting made of grass or leaves or deerskin. He should allow the hair of his head as well as on his body, nails, mustaches, and beard, as well as the dirt on his body to grow, and should not even scrub his teeth with a brush. Should take a plunge bath after the manner of a pestle without rubbing his body 3 times in the morning, midday, and evening each day. But he should not scrub the dirt from his body. He should just plunge into the water and get back out thrice a day. And should sleep on the ground, covered with grass, etc. In summer, he should allow himself to be heated by 5 fires, 1 in each quarter about himself, and the 5th is the sun blazing overhead. During the rains, he should perform a bhravakasa vrata. He should expose himself to showers, while in the closing months of winter, Magha and Phalguna, approximately January and February, he should remain immersed up to the neck in water. This is called the Udakavasa vrata. He should practice austerities following this mode of life. He is permitted to eat only what is roasted in fire or gets ripened by process of time. He can thrash wild corn in a mortar with a pestle and pound hard substances with a stone, or he may use the teeth alone for his mortar and pestle. Fully aware of the place and time where and when a certain thing could be had, as well as of his own digestive power, he should personally get together all the means of his subsistence and should never use what was got at another time. In other words, he should not keep stores of food. When he gets food, he should eat it, save none for later. An ascetic should perform rites such as the agrayana rite, enjoyed at particular periods of time, with oblations prepared out of wild products, but he should on no account propitiate me through the sacrifice of an animal as enjoined by the Vedas. Those are only for householders. Agnihotra, offering to the sacred fire an oblation consisting chiefly of milk, oil, and sour gruel. Darsha, the half-monthly sacrifice performed on every Amavasya, every new moon. Purnamasa, the half-monthly sacrifice performed on every full moon. And the 3 sacrifices performed at the beginning of the 3 seasons of 4 months each, at the Vaishvadeva, the Varuna Praghasa, and the Shakamedha Yagnas, have been enjoined on an anchorite, as in the case of a householder, by the exponents of the Vedas. Having propitiated me, the embodiment of wisdom, through austerities undergone by him thus, a hermit reduced to a mere skeleton, spread all over with protruding veins for want of flesh, so emaciated with hunger, comes to me through successive stages from Maharaloka, the realm of the rishis, to which he ascends in the ordinary course after his death. Who could be more stupid than him who would divert such great tapas, performed with great hardship and calculated to secure the highest good, to the fulfillment of a paltry desire, the desire for any material fruit, up to the attainment of Brahmaloka? When the ascetic, shaking with old age, is incapable of observing any longer the sacred vow to which he has pledged himself, he may withdraw the 3 sacred fires, the Ahavaniya, the Garhapatya, and the Dakshina fires that he has been maintaining and worshipping, into himself, and with his mind fixed on me, enter the fire and burn himself to death. When, however, he develops a thorough distaste for the higher worlds, up to the realm of Brahma, the Creator, as a reward of pious acts done from an interested motive, though as a matter of fact, no better than Naraka, abounding as they do in sorrows and suffering, he may, on the sacred fires having been withdrawn into himself, renounce the world and go about as a mendicant recluse from the very ashrama in which he may be stationed. Having propitiated me according to the precepts through the Prajapatya Yajna, after performing the 8 types of Sraddha incumbent on him who is going to renounce the world, if he is free from all desires, and given everything to the officiating priest of that last Yajna, and having withdrawn the sacred fire into his own breath, the hermit may enter the order of recluses, the order of sannyas. In the way of a Brahmana who is actually going to renounce the world, the gods in the garb of his wife and so on place obstacles for fear lest he should outstrip them and attain to the supreme. One who is bent on attaining final moksha should not be deterred by such obstacles. If at all a recluse would have a covering for his body, he should wear a piece of cloth barely enough to cover the strip of cloth used by him to hide his private parts with. Nor should he retain in his possession anything renounced by him at the time of entering the order of sannyasa, other than a staff and a kamandalu pot made of the shell of a wild coconut. Otherwise than in a critical plight. In a critical plight, he may use other objects. He should take every step only after the ground he is going to tread has been carefully scanned with his eyes, lest he should unwittingly step on any creature. He should drink water strained through a piece of cloth, utter words tested on the touchstone of truth, and do that which has been found correct by reference to his conscience. Silence is the cudgel to control one's speech, abstinence from interested action, the one to control one's body, and pranayama is the cudgel to curb one's mind. He does not wield these cudgels. He who does not wield these cudgels cannot be a recluse merely by carrying the bamboo staves. A recluse should resort for alms to the 4 types of brahmanas alone, those living by gifts received, teaching, officiating at sacrifices, and gleaning food grains from fields and grain markets. Those are the only people from whom a sannyasi should beg. Avoiding those of reproachful conduct, and visit only 7 houses per day, not specified before, so should never visit the same house twice, and should remain contented with the food got from those houses alone. Going to a reservoir of water, such as a pond or tank outside the town or village, he should rinse his mouth there, and allotting a due share to those deserving it, to Lord Vishnu, to Brahma, to the sun god, and to all created beings, once it has been consecrated by sprinkling water and so on, he should silently consume all the rest that was brought by him, neither bringing more than he required, nor laying by anything for later. With his senses fully controlled, he should perambulate this earth all alone and free from attachment, finding recreation and delight in the self, self-possessed and viewing all alike. Dwelling in a lonely yet secure abode and keeping his mind pure through devotion to me, the sage should contemplate on the self as one and undistinguishable from me. By inquiring into the truth of things, he should investigate the true nature of bondage and liberation of the self. Bondage consists in the distraction of the senses and liberation in their full control. Therefore, keeping in check the 6 senses, the 5 external senses and the mind, and averse to the trifling pleasures of sense and finding abundant joy in the self, the recluse should go about the world contemplating on me. He should perambulate the earth full of holy tracts, rivers, mountains, woodlands, and hermitages, entering towns and villages, cowherd stations and caravanserais only for the sake of alms. He should often beg alms from the hermitages of anchorites, for his mind being purified by the hermit's food obtained by gleaning grains from the fields. He is rid of infatuation and attains the goal of his life soon. He should not regard this visible world as real, because it is perishable. With his mind unattached to this world as well as to the next, he should cease from every activity intended to secure the objects of senses, realizing by force of reasoning that all that exists, this universe, as well as the body, conjoined with the mind, speech, and the vital air, as a mental illusion superimposed on the self, and turning his back on it, he should think no more of it and remain established in the self. No longer governed by the scriptural ordinance, he who is established in self-knowledge, though appearing as a seeker of liberation or a devotee of mine, seeking nothing, may do as he likes, renouncing the 4 ashramas along with their distinguishing marks, such as even the triple staff of a recluse. Though sound of judgment, he should sport like a child, bereft of honor and ignominy. Though clever, he should behave like a dullard. Though learned, he should rave like a madman, as he has none to please by his speech. Though devoted to the intention of the Vedas, he should behave like an animal, observing no consistency in his behavior. He should not take delight in expounding the section of the Vedas treating of ritual acts, nor should he observe any rules of conduct opposed to the injunctions of the Vedas in the Smriti texts, nor should he be devoted to ratiocination, nor again should he take any side in a fruitless discussion. He should not be annoyed with anyone, nor should he annoy anyone. With his mind fully controlled, he should put up with abuses and should never show disrespect to anyone, nor should he, for the sake of his body, make enemies with anyone, like a brute. For as the same moon gets reflected in many vessels of water, the same transcendent self is present in all created beings as well as in one's own body, so that there is no ground for enmity whatsoever from the point of view of the spirit, and the bodies too are essentially one, constituted as they are of the same gross elements. Full of fortitude, a sannyasi should not get dejected on not getting food in time on any occasion, nor should he feel rejoiced to get it. Both lie in the hands of Providence. He must exert himself to procure food, for an attempt on his part to sustain life would be justified. By sustaining life, truth is investigated by him, and realizing the truth thereby, he will get liberated for all time to come. A recluse should eat the food, whether excellent or of the worst type, obtained by the will of Providence, and accept whatever clothing and bed may be got by him. A man of wisdom should cultivate the even light refreshments, such as milk and fruits and sipping water. A man of wisdom should cultivate the habits of cleanliness, rinsing the mouth after answering the calls of nature, after taking food or even light refreshments such as milk and fruits, and sipping water before meals, etc., and bathing thrice every day, and observing other rules of conduct by way of sport, as I, the Almighty Lord, do, but not in compliance with scriptural ordinance. So he may do these things if he feels like it, but he is no longer bound by the scriptures. For there is no longer any perception of difference in him. Whatever there was has been uprooted by my realization as the self of all. What does appear at times will continue by force of prarabdha till death. Thereafter, he will get indissolubly united with me. A man of self-control who has got disgusted with the pleasures of sense, which are invariably attended with sorrow, but who has not yet been instructed in the duties that enable one to realize me, should betake himself to a teacher given to contemplation. Full of reverence and devotion and free from censoriousness, he should do service to the Guru in a respectful mood, knowing him really to be myself till he realizes Brahman. He, however, who has not yet been able to control his 6 senses, whose intellect, the controller of his senses, is intensely fond of the pleasures of sense, who is destitute of wisdom and dispassion and makes his living by the triple staff, the impurities of whose heart have not yet been fully burnt, and who has thus violated the duties of a sannyasi and is deceiving the gods, his own self, as well as myself dwelling in his heart, is deprived of this world as well as of the next. Control of the mind and the senses and harmlessness constitute the righteous course of a recluse. Enduring hardships prescribed by the Shastras and inquiry into the truth are the duties of a vanaprastha. Protection of living beings and performance of the 5 daily yajnas are the duties of a householder, and rendering service to the Guru, that of the brahmachari. Observing chastity, enduring hardships involved in the discharge of his rightful duties, purity of body and mind, contentment and kindness to all created beings, constitute the sacred duty even of a householder who seeks the bed of his wife, during the period following the courses favorable for conception. My worship is the pious duty common to all. He who constantly worships me through the performance of his duty as aforesaid, seeking no other reward, begins to look upon all created beings as myself and attains firm devotion to me. Through unceasing devotion, O Uddhava, he attains to me, the supreme ruler of all the worlds, responsible for the creation and destruction of all, the source of the Vedas. He whose mind has thus been purified through the performance of his own duty and who has fully realized my divine character is equipped with indirect and direct knowledge concerning me and attains to me before long. This is the righteous course of those affiliated to a particular varna and ashrama consisting of certain rules of conduct. The same dharma, when characterized by devotion to me or pursued as an offering to me, proves to be of supreme value as a means to final moksha. Thus I have told you, O good one, how a man wedded to his righteous course turns out to be a devotee and duly attains to me, the supreme. And this is what you asked me. Thus ends the 18th discourse in Book 11 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita. And I think we can end there for today, just after 10. And the next discourse starts up with another subject. Thank you guys all very much for coming.
Thanks, Dave. Amazing. I had a question.
Sure.
Thank you. Well, one is a quick one is, what was so Krishna appeared as a bull?
The bull of Dharma. The bull of Dharma in the first Satyuga of the Kalpa. Yes.
Cool. Was there a name of that cow?
Dharma.
Oh, his name was Dharma.
The name of the bull is Dharma. Yes. It's the same reference to the bull of Dharma who loses a leg in each yuga.
Whoa.
As Dharma stands less and less stably in the Treta Yuga and the Dvapara Yuga, and extremely unstably in the Kali Yuga.
His legs like represent the principles, right? Or whatever.
Yes. Represent the foundations and the stability of Dharma.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. So Discourse 15, verse 32, he says, the wise avoid all the cities.
The wise, yes, the wise, well, they don't avoid the siddhis. They avoid indulgence on the siddhi, indulgence in the siddhis. The wise speak of the siddhis as obstacles in the path of the man who is practicing the highest yoga, and that they cause delay in his getting united to me. So on the path, as one gets close, the siddhis arise naturally. But the wise advise one not to indulge in their use, because to do anything other than continuing to pursue the course of yoga distracts you from that course. So they advise that when the siddhis arise, don't play with them too much, because that's beside the point.
Interesting, which reminds me of like Amma's kind of teaching. She's got some teachings where she's just like, I mean, I'm going to paraphrase obviously, but she's like, yeah, I could levitate, yeah, I could heal the blind, but you know, I'd rather just hug everybody and do stuff on a practical level and feed hungry people and give homeless people, you know, clean sanitary conditions, rather than levitate and you know,
rather than show off for fame or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of all those lines, huh?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
One more question. Oh yeah, like what's, you know, we get a lot of reference to like twice born. What's that?
So that was mentioned briefly, but it's one of those things that in India, everybody knows what that means. And so he doesn't like elaborate because he's talking to Uddhava, who of course knows what that means. But to explain it, it's a translation of Dvija. It basically refers to Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, who, and their, or particularly to their men, who they have a coming of age ceremony, the investiture with the sacred thread, when they reach a certain age, or a certain age range. They go through an investiture with the sacred thread, and through the Diksha, the initiation into the Gayatri Upasana, the practice of the Gayatri mantra, the Savitri Gayatri mantra, which is considered an initiation so important that it's spoken of as a second birth. And so those who have undergone that initiation are called the twice born.
Oh,
that's what that's a reference to.
Neat.
And so it's all traditionally initiated Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas.
And like they referred, I don't know, for maybe the first time I noticed, to anchorites today, which what is it? What, a forest dweller or what?
Yeah, they're using that as a translation for vanaprasthas. Yeah, forest dwellers. Who are not always literally forest dwellers. They'll often dwell in an ashram somewhere, and like a forest, metaphorically speaking, meaning withdrawn from society, withdrawn from the human world. It doesn't. It may or may not literally be in a forest.
And it doesn't necessarily mean a monk or a sadhu or anything, or does it?
Many of them are monks and sadhus. Certainly, they live like a monk. They've renounced householder pleasures at that point. If they have seen fit to take the vow of vanaprastha, but they're not sannyasis. They're not absolute renunciates who have given up everything. You know, they still have a home somewhere. It may be in an ashram or maybe just in the woods. Yeah, but
are they necessarily like a monk or of a spiritual order, or like are the hillbillies of Appalachia drinking their whiskey and running?
No,
from their
they are not in vanaprastha dharma. You can be a householder while living in a forest. It's not a matter of where you physically are.
But they refer to like just like hillbillies as anchorites.
No. Yeah. It's referring to renunciates who are giving up attachment to the world and to sensory pleasures and such.
Yeah, monks to a degree, but not necessarily. Yes.
Not full sannyasis, at least not yet.
Incredible. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Dave.
Yeah, thank you guys very much.
Yeah, amazing notes today. Yeah. I would like these little these descriptions, like the Ekadashi descriptions often go into little extensive details about how to be a sadhu, or like how to really nail it, like the monk life.
Yes.
And they're like so extensive. You're like, oh, I could never juggle that. But then you just chip away at it, and you like do one. For me, that's my take on it. You just do one step at a time, and you're like, oh, I could do one of those things.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
Right. Let's try that, and just kind of then try two, then try three, and so amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Haribol.
Haribol.